Two sisters' hearts, acknowledging the present,
healing from the past,
holding space for this season,
and trusting God with every step on the way.
This is From L to H. Okay, well, welcome back, guys.
Welcome back.
I'm excited.
Guess who's back?
Oh my gosh.
Is that not a song?
To our show. No, you made that up.
Oh,
is that a song?
I feel like that's a bop.
It may
something.
be.
I'm gonna have to Google it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
I don't know.
But that's funny that that's the song that comes to mind.
Songs always come to mind. I sing constantly.
You do. Me too. That's where my
It's my creative juice.
Yeah. I have a lot of them. Now I can't tell you who sung it all the time. Probably not majority of the time.
Most of my songs
names are not like things for me.
Some of them are songs that I make up. Like I sing a good morning song to the kids.
Okay, goodbye.
All the time.
All right,
Going up the stairs.
Welcome back, guys. So we are going to be talking about something good today. We're gonna piggyback off of our last episode. So we're talking about postpartum. Today, which is going to be some good stuff. But before we get started,
before we jump in, you ready?
I know, right?
You got some stuff to talk about, huh?
Girl, I'm excited about it. I was like, ooh, it's recording day. So the word is struggle.
Bus.
Girl, that was my word.
Oh, was it?
Say bus.
Yeah. Why is it?
Do you feel like you're struggling right now?
I feel like every day I'm fighting for my life. I feel like I'm in that season every single day.
Oh my gosh, you're just trying to make it.
I'm just trying to make it. Every morning I'm like, Jesus,
be with me, Lord.
Give me your strength.
Grace me.
Empower
me, energy. Holy Spirit.
Settle me. Because
my apologies. We're just gonna.
What time is it?
Hubby's calling.
Oh, we need a?
No, it's fine. He doesn't want anything.
Why was bus? That's so.
Because that's just the saying, like struggle bus. I don't feel like I'm on the bus right now. I feel like I kind of like step on and off it.
I'm like driving it.
What is wrong with you? Come on. Well, listen, you're in the thick of it. But I also remember like that season, and even now I'm like, this is just gonna be your life. Like I feel like I've come to terms with like your life is gonna be really, really crazy, and just be grateful and ask God for grace, because baby, yesterday, so certain days I'm just like,
where are you?
I'm grateful, Lord. I am, but Jesus. So
yeah,
but just hang on that bus,
it's like
girl.
random. It's like it's not like, I don't feel like I'm on the bus all day. I feel like I have shifts. So right now is your shift to drive. Okay, thank you. And then I can it's lunchtime.
At least it's not all day.
Some days. Because yesterday came out of nowhere like, hey, you're on call today. Oh, okay. Here I come.
I'm coming. All-nighter. Listen. Okay, so we talked about pregnancy a good bit last session, and just like what our different journeys were like with like, our different children for the most part. And so now like the postpartum part. What were your expectations as far as postpartum? Did you have any?
No, because I feel like, and this might be redundant, but I learned a lot from your pregnancies. And I feel like you were pretty good with AJ. I know like the recovery part of like your C-section, but I feel like I was there, and I mean, I think that you just handled postpartum gracefully. And I know there were moments where like you struggled, and like I know I was like present a lot like after you had AJ because you didn't want to be alone. But like what my postpartum was with Navi was not like, I was like, what is going on? And I think that maybe because like I'm not the more emotional one, and you kind of are. So like when you were having those emotions,
I need to turn my phone
just answer. No, it's not him.
My bad.
It's okay.
That's something you have to do when you
The enemy is, he's trying to distract us. It's fine.
Okay, yes.
It's fine.
So, me being more emotional.
Yeah, so I feel like you weren't overly emotional after you had any of the kids. I feel like during your pregnancies was when you were more emotional. I feel like after you were kind of like at your base. And so I wasn't expecting my postpartum to hit me the way that it did, because to me, like, yeah, you had, like, there are some things that you did have, but it didn't seem like...
What emotional things did you experience?
With Navi?
Yeah.
Girl, I was crying all the time. And I'm not a crier. Like, I'm not, even, like, to this day, I'm like... go back in there. But I was like, I had really bad anxiety with her. And so I think that probably the lack of sleep is probably what, and the anxiety is what, but like, I remember there was a time where I was like folding clothes, and I think I was like maybe 2 weeks postpartum, and I was like bawling, crying. And it was like I was sad, but I had no idea. And I was like fine, started folding clothes, and I'm like,
and all of a sudden,
bawling, crying, and I'm like, like, not even like the tear, just like cute, like, I'm like the ugly cry. When we got home from having Navia, as soon as we got into the house, I started bawling, crying, because I was so grateful that we were home.
Yeah.
Like, it was just, the emotions were just overwhelming.
It's intense. It's intense. And even with me being like an emotional person, it was because it was like without warning. Like, you would just be like, oh,
that's a good way to say it.
oh, this is what we're doing. Like, what is this? What, like, I don't so it is like an emotional roller coaster. For me, I felt like there were just things I didn't know about what to expect once you go home. That was like challenging. Like, I knew I wasn't going to get sleep, but until you're sleep deprived, you just don't know what sleep deprivation is. And I feel like, you know, it's always, I tell like new moms now, like, I really check on them like that 2 to 3 week mark. I feel like it's like something is like everything is like piling down, and like, because you're probably not sleeping, and you're not sleeping when the baby's sleeping, and like just trying to give yourself grace. I learned grace in motherhood. Like, probably when I got to Aiden, I was like, okay, you know what? Like, it's okay.
So, quick question, because I know, so what was your difference between, because I feel like you handled AJ like you were like a champ.
No.
Like,
do you remember when he got circumcised and Dad went with me, and then I had to literally call Mom because Dre and I were trying to change his bandages, and like, I was in nursing school at the time, but I like had just started, so like I didn't, and Dre was like, he's, you know,
squeamish.
Yes, and so he like, and I feel like we were almost about to like almost cut his penis. I was trying to get like the little, and I just remember start crying.
No, because you didn't call me, you called Mom.
I did, and I called Mom, and I was like, Mom, you have to come get him. We changed him, but he was like, I was unconsolable, like he was unconsolable, and so Mom got him. He was like 10 days old, and like he slept over Mom's that night. So like, yeah,
I think that maybe also because was that my sophomore year
in college at the time?
It was 2011 when you had him, right?
Yes, because we were supposed to move in together your freshman year, and that's when I got pregnant.
After my freshman year.
Yeah.
So that was my sophomore year. So I was in college, and I was still living on campus. And so it was like right before school was out, because he was born in April. So I think that like those first couple of weeks, because I was in school.
Yeah, you weren't as
that, like, I wasn't
present.
But I know that like after, I know like during the summer. And I also didn't have a car. So I would have not random people, but I would like talk to my friends.
And we did not live close. We literally lived like 45 minutes from Kennesaw State.
If you guys know Georgia, I was going to Kennesaw State, and Q lived off of Camp Creek.
Yeah. And she was there like...
And I had no car.
All the time.
I was... Shout out to my friends then, and to the person I was talking to, because he dropped me off.
Did. Yeah, he did. We're thankful. We're grateful.
Okay, so I wanted to know like the difference in regards to how you felt for after you had AJ. I want to do AJ and Aiden because they were close together. And they were also boys. I do feel like it might be a little bit different when you have a boy, when you have a girl. So I want to talk about like emotions, like how they differed from both of them. And then you had a C-section with AJ, and you had vaginally with Aiden. So also like that part of it.
So the C-section recovery was a little intense. I feel like it was definitely worse in the hospital. Like,
oh, why?
Because they weren't like being consistent with my medication or check. Because it's PRN, so it's as needed. So when I would be asleep, I would sleep and then I would wake up in pain because they weren't like, they didn't wake me up to say like, hey, it's time for your pain medicine.
I do feel like the hospital you had AJ at, no offense, I don't even remember what hospital it was trash.
They were.
I feel like it was real trash.
They were. And I was 25, so I didn't know how to advocate for myself. Like, I didn't see AJ for almost a day because they wouldn't roll me down there until my epidural wore off. And it took forever for my epidural
to
wear
off. I remember.
So
I went down there.
Yeah. And so Dre was, like, literally having to help me, like, shower, everything. And then when I got home, it was much better. And I just went to, like, the Motrin, like the Percocet, like was making me foggy and but like emotionally I felt like just the circumcision took me out because they didn't do it in the hospital. They did it the 10 days after he was born.
You know that's how it should be.
Oh well,
that's another conversation.
Okay, yeah. Well, because the nurses feel like we always saw it done in the hospital. So honestly, I feel like I would prefer them to do it in the hospital. I don't know that, because I felt like he was like, because there's a lot of babies are like somnolent, like they're sleepy those first 24, 48 hours. So their response, but AJ was like fully alert. I didn't even go in there. Dad went in there and I could hear him scream. We're not going to get into that. So like that.
But it's still the same. When Nori got circumcised, I said, you want him to get circumcised? Okay, you're going with him. And Marcus said he could hear him screaming. And like when he came back in the room, like I thought Marcus got circumcised. So I think it doesn't matter that they just might have a little more force behind their cry because they're a little bit older. A good point.
So I feel like once I got over that part, it was just like just figuring out like the not sleeping and like not taking time for myself. Like, you're a mom, so like he wanted to be up under me all the time. Like him and Dre were trying to figure things out, and so it was like I did not have any time to myself.
What do you mean the not sleeping? Like, what did that look like? Because I feel like people will say like, oh, I'm not sleeping, but people don't understand like what does that look like? Like, how frequently are you waking up? What are you doing when you wake up? Like, it's not like, hey, the baby wakes up at this time, okay, I get them to sleep, and then like all of a sudden I'm back to sleep too. Like, what does that look like?
AJ's was off, so he was sleeping during the day and was up all night. So the first night we came home, he did not sleep until like 6 o'clock in the morning. And Dre and I
from what to what?
So when he was probably up from, I'll say like maybe 8 or 9 p.m. And he like cried until 6 a.m. Like Dre and I literally went back and forth rocking. He would fall asleep for a second.
Tired. He was,
And so literally at 6 in the morning, Dre and I are sitting, he finally falls asleep and we're sitting in the living room. But I could like literally see, it's like an out of body experience. We're sitting there like,
what the heck just happened? You got mollywopped by your first boy.
Oh my gosh, right? And so I was trying to like get him into a routine. He's a newborn. So literally I was trying to like, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to sleep during the daytime because we're going to be up at night. And so like, it just depends. All of their sleeping was different. But I felt sleep deprived with each child. I feel like it hit me the worst with London because I was older and it had been so long.
And there was a gap.
Yeah. Aiden was a good baby. Like he would wake. He woke up to eat. He would go back to sleep. Like I had to get up to sleep to feed him, but then he would go back to sleep. Like emotionally, like I was fine with Aiden. Like it was just like just trying to navigate both of them. But like really emotionally, like outside of when I feel like I feel like I had challenging moments with each of my children. With Aiden, I ended up going to the hospital because my uterus was laying on my ureter, which uterus is what holds the baby, and the ureter is what connects your kidney to your bladder. It was laying on there, so the fluid couldn't come down. So I was having chills and like pain.
Because you got an infection, didn't you? Yeah.
For like 2 nights, and I was like, this is weird. Like, but I was like, it's fine. I'm probably just tired. And then like the next day I was like, we have got to go somewhere. And we went to the emergency room and I was in the hospital for like 3 days.
Yeah, I have pictures.
And Aiden was like 10 days old. So like that was a lot. Like sweet. Now you were gone. Now baby, I slept. That was the benefit of it. I slept. I mean, they do come into the room a lot, but yeah. So
how was your recovery with AJ? Because you had a C-section. So how was that recovery? Like when you got home? Because you said that you felt like it was better at home than it was at the hospital. So like...
Yeah, I just didn't like go down the stairs because we were on the 3rd floor. I would just take Motrin like pretty much around the clock, maybe for the first couple of days. Okay. But I think it was just being in your own like comfort space and like...
How was walking? How was peeing?
Walking was fine. Peeing was fine. Showering was fine. It was, and I was in the hospital for 5 days because they used to keep patients longer then. So I was there for a good bit of my recovery, you know. So by the time I got home,
some really good core muscle strength.
Oh, was yours? Your experience was?
I was in the hospital for 5 days.
It was 5 days, girl. Yeah.
Girl, I was in so much pain when we got home.
I remember you were in pain for a little while.
I was in pain for a really long time. I felt like it took me 2 full weeks before I felt like I was not like in pain. But I also wasn't taking the medicine.
Well, why were you not taking the medicine?
Because it would only get bad at night.
That is true.
It was fine during the day, and it was
at
night when I would like wake up mid.
Yeah.
And Marcus's theory was that like your body recovers when you're sleeping, and so because I was waking up with Nori, that like I was like interrupting the healing process.
And then you gotta think you're stagnant, like you're not moving, you're still. So,
I applaud you,
girl,
mighty woman.
Listen, and I was but you gotta think too. I was 25.
Oh yeah, you was a young teen.
And how old were you when you had Nori? What were you like?
30.
32? Girl, the difference between
33?
32.
Yeah, I was 32.
The difference, those years make a difference. So I do contribute like that part.
These 30s. So
how do you feel like what differed between Nori and Navia as far as emotionally? Do you feel like you knew what to expect with Nori more? So I feel like that's hard to say too, because even the circumstances behind each pregnancy and where you're at is so different. Like where you're at with your spouse, what they need, what you guys have going on, moving, like so.
So I'm gonna say that postpartum with Navi took me out and scared me. I had, like I said, I had a lot of anxiety to where like no one outside of you, mom, and his dad saw Navi until she was 3 months old.
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
Like no one could come over. And and I had her in 2019, so it wasn't like, oh, COVID, because it hadn't happened yet. I was afraid to drive with her. Marcus was literally, he was just like a person who lived with us. Like, because I wouldn't even let him like have her because I'm like, she's mine. Like, when something happens, like it literally like.
We're gonna talk about that.
Yeah, it really, because I felt like you can't take care of her, and that wasn't the case. And so it was like I'm only the person who's capable of like sustaining her life, and that wasn't the case. But that's how bad my anxiety was. Like if I left her, she was gonna die. Like that's what I thought. And it took a really long time, like for that anxiety to like start getting smaller and smaller. And I feel like it took until she was like almost 2 before like the anxiety was really.
Yeah. And I remember we used to talk about it because I would be like, Jazz, and I would give you grace.
You would.
But I
don't know if I took it as grace. Because you were gentle with it, right?
I was.
But like.
Because you were extreme, girl. And then that wasn't who you ever were.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God.
It was bad. It was it was really bad. Because like the only person who would have Navi overnight was my mom. I was even afraid of you to have her because you had 3 other kids. Yeah. And they love babies.
I'm like, Jazz, we're good over here.
She's
like,
gonna
we got
survive.
it. Like,
but it was really so the anxiety really was something that I didn't realize because you didn't have postpartum anxiety. So I didn't even know that. Like I've heard of postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sad. I was just very anxious.
Yeah.
To where like even when she was like 1, I would sleep with the baby monitor on playing on my phone, and I would wake up every so often to look like, and she was 1 girl. The girl's she's fine. Like, so that was like my experience with Navia, and I also cried a lot with her.
I have a thought I'm gonna try to keep because I want to like circle back to.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna circle back.
Because with Nori, it was gonna be simple. I was perfectly fine with Nori. I wasn't sad. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't angry. I wasn't.
You did good. I'm not saying you did good, but like I felt like you.
There was no emotional like overwhelming feelings. Like the roughest part was the recovery from the C-section, and then like the actual like coping with me having to have a C-section.
Yeah.
But afterwards, like having him know, I tried to be very mindful of like being lenient. I am a germaphobe. I feel like that came with Navi and that hasn't left. I'm working on it though. I'm getting a little bit better. But so like that was like I feel like that was the only thing in regards to Nori that like kind of has stuck, is like my germophobia.
Okay. So question. How did you feel like you viewed yourself after having the kids? Like, did you know, like, did you really understand capacity and like what that looked like for you, and like how that was changing, and like how to communicate the needs and what you were feeling?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to say with Navia, no. Because I feel like my relationship with God was not what it was when I was pregnant with Nori, when I was pregnant with Navi. And I feel like I did have a lot of like, especially after I had her, I had a lot of like anger outburst. And it was more so like when it was like me and Marcus. Because I felt like I was not being supported. I felt like I was not being heard. I felt like no one knew what I was going through, and not even you or Mom. And especially because I had such bad anxiety, and like even though it was coming from a loving place, you and Mom would comment on it a lot. And it was very irrational for sure, but I just felt like I was not like heard or seen. And I didn't know how to communicate that. Which is why I think like I would be randomly crying or randomly have like my anger outburst. And I do know that like there was a point where like me and Marcus had a conversation, and he was like, you have to tell me what's going on. But and I know that we're going to talk about this a little later on, but that conversation also like allowed him to express how he felt, because I think like you don't realize that you're not only are you going through things, but your partner is too. And sometimes when you don't communicate, you guys are doing a disservice to each other.
Absolutely.
With Nori, I had to communicate with Marcus
because you physically needed help.
I physically needed him. And maybe that was a God thing. Like why it took me so long because I am still very much a person like I will do everything. I got it. I'm going to figure it out. Like I remember the day that we got back got back from the hospital, I was like, I'm going to try to do a load of laundry.
Like, girl, what?
Sit down. Wow. I regretted that. I did one load. I regretted it.
And I do remember you like saying with Nori, there were like multiple days where you would be hurting by the end of the day because you overdid it. And it's like, so again, understanding like my capacity is different. And I think that like a lot of women just don't understand that there's a shift in your capacity. And so again, like the grace that I extended myself when I had London was so much more than what I had done with the boys. But I started with Aiden. Like I was like, oh no. Because I was like literally doing everything. And you know,
what do you mean by everything? I feel like we use the word everything so loosely. So
like, you know, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm feeding him. At the time, AJ, I'm feeding you. I'm bathing you. I'm in school, like I'm in nursing school. I also have like, you know, a sister. And so even like the dynamics of like, how does you, when you become a mom, how does that affect your other relationships? And so like trying to navigate and figure that out. So like I felt like responsibility wise, and Dre was working. So like he was providing for our family. We had one car. So like we were coordinating, like I would drop him off and like drop him off at the train station, go home, take AJ to daycare, go to nursing school, come back, get AJ, come home, wait for Dre to get back to the train station, go pick up Dre, come. Like it was just a lot. And so, but I also didn't know how to communicate. Like I was still trying to wrap my mind around what was happening. And I guess I just figured, oh, this is just what people do. Like you become a mom, like now you have all these responsibilities. Because I think that when we were growing up and like what we would see in multiple relationships was the wife or the mother would do majority of the responsibilities. And so once I got to Aiden, I was like, no, actually I was pregnant with Aiden. And I remember having a conversation with Dre and I was like, yeah, we're going to have to figure out the responsibilities and how we split this because we're about to have a second baby. These are going to be both of our children, and it's important for you to be involved too. So let's figure out how to navigate that. So that's when like that whole like I know my capacity has changed, and we have to communicate the needs.
I'm glad that you realized that before you had your second one, and like we're able to have that conversation. I do feel like everyone has like that like moment where it's like, I cannot. And I'm not a single woman. Like if I had to do it because I'm like, but I'm not a single woman. I have a more than capable
and a lot
husband.
of times too we enable them because we don't allow them to do everything, because again it's like, oh, I can do it better, so if you're going to do it, you need to do it my way, and if you're not going to do it my way, I don't want you to do it. So then he doesn't do it because you make him feel bad when he does it his way.
That part, because they got to figure it out, because you had to figure it out.
You did, and your way is not the right way. Who said that?
You know, there's a statistic, this is very random, but they say that mothers are good to have their kids the first 2 to 3 years of their lives, like from newborn to 2 to 3. And on from that, fathers are, because men are more logical, women are more emotional. And so we're very like back and forth. Yeah. And men are very like kind of.
This is what we said we're going to do. And this is what, that's good.
So just so you know, moms, you're not the end all be all.
You think you know.
I'm just.
But you don't.
Just. Okay, so once you had Aiden in the dynamic, what did you do to like implement? Because it's easy to say, hey, we both have to do these things.
Right.
So how did you implement, or what did it look like implementing to where we're sharing this workload so that I'm at the same capacity that you are in regards to responsibilities?
Right. So it does change depending upon, the season that you're in.
Okay.
But like, so my wash days are these days. Your wash days. You bathe our child.
Like, what are we washing?
You bathe our child on these days. And then it's like, okay, so for clothes, you wash your clothes and then you wash AJ's clothes. Or like you wash the towels, the sheets, I'll do me. And so it's like dividing the responsibilities to where it's still proportionally fair too, though, right? Because if I'm not working and I'm in school, like, yes, I have other obligations, but you are physically like at a job for 8 hours. So like it has to proportionally make sense.
Yeah.
And then it's also like setting an expectation, like, okay, this is what we agreed to do. I'm going to give you grace. Or if there's something that like I see that, okay, this isn't necessarily an agreement, but like, oh, this would be helpful. Hey, can you do this for me? But I'll give you to the end of the, hey, by the end of the day, do you mind having this done? Instead of like with us, we're like, hey, can you do this?
When you have a second, do it, and the second is like now.
And they're like, ma'am, And so like, I think just being clear and then like figuring out like what that schedule looks like. And if you need to reevaluate, like when things I would notice like, okay, maybe I'm not doing or something, like, oh, we probably need to reevaluate because something has shifted. And so like now what does it look like for us? So you have to like really be in tune with like flexible. Your spouse and your family, and be like, there's an awareness that you have to have.
So what shifted, because we haven't really talked about London. So what was that pregnancy, like the postpartum like with her? Because you said that it was harder with her than with the other two.
It was harder because of like the sleep. It had been so long since I had not had sleep.
What's the age gap between
so
Aiden and London?
5 years.
Okay.
And so in London did not sleep like Aiden. And so again, Aiden was like the good. So I was like, whoo, like that's really, so if you want to talk about it, like it's been 7 years because AJ was more challenging.
You know how they say that like kids they're much better when they're not with their parents?
Yeah.
Because I watched London and my girl would sleep I would be like working and I would look down and she would be asleep right next to me.
Now when she got older, yeah.
When she was
younger, yeah.
Even when she was young.
She would sleep good with you.
She would sleep good with me. Yeah. Like I also wrapped her to me. I did wear her.
You did wear. Now I did wear London a good bit. I was like, girl, come on. I should have did that with all of them. But anyways, and so I think too, once we had 2 other kids. And so like, and so it's like, okay, Dre, like you are helping with the other kid. Like you're kind of responsible for them. I'm helping with them, but like my responsibility is London. And then like breastfeeding. And then I got mastitis, which that's something I was not unaware of. Oh my God. And it was horrible. I got it twice.
Oh, bless Jesus. Thank you for
that is the worst type of pain.
And her not giving up. Because I
almost did. One of my good friends, Kristen, was like, okay, do you need to do this, and this? Like, she was, like, a great support for me. And that's why, like, I love supporting women when they're, like, on their breastfeeding journey, because it is challenging.
Me too. It definitely is challenging. Oh, we need to talk about that. I didn't know. So I know that you did get mastitis. And I was like, I'm like, I've heard people had it, but like, you don't understand. So my journey with Navi was very beautiful outside of the postpartum part.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding it wasn't an issue.
Girl, you did that.
Do you remember when I called you at 3 a.m? Now, she didn't pick up, but to be fair, it was 3 a.m. Like, I think you had to, like, either you had work that day or you were going to work the next day. My boob was literally, huge. And I'm a small girl.
Mommin. Yeah.
It had to have been a D cup.
Yeah.
And I was like, Nori was feeding, and it just was not getting smaller. And I was like, this hurts.
It was like such a sharp pain, and they tell you to like keep feeding on that side to try to release it. You're like, how? Like, it was like almost like an electrical radiate. Like, it would radiate down my arm. And I was like, I can't.
It was, and I didn't even have mastitis. I just had a clogged duct. Because it never got that way, because he was able to get it out. My nipple was so big it wouldn't fit in his mouth. Because he was I think 2 weeks old or something like that.
Yeah, he was small when that happened.
I was like, is this what she was talking about? It is. I felt like it was more painful than healing from my C-section.
It's it's probably the most painful thing I've experienced.
I was like, you did not do and I'm like, maybe because you just like, there's a grace that kind of comes with like certain things.
Girl, I feel like
you told me, but you didn't tell me.
There's also like no way to
describe
it. It's just horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
my girl.
Yeah. So I think and then I was older. Like, I was older. My body was older. So I was 33.
Oh, okay. So like around the age I had.
Yeah, I think I was 33. I'm pretty sure.
She was born 2018.
I'm doing the math.
She was born 2018.
And what is it now? 24?
20, yeah.
6 years. So I was 32.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Literally the same age.
No, I was going on. I was just turned 33 because I had her in April.
Okay.
But yeah.
Them girls.
They're different. What they also don't tell you is about the postpartum hair loss.
Because when I tell you Aiden
was so...
You were
so
flourishing. You held that. You carried him well. Your hair was flourishing.
My skin was nice.
Even after you had him, it wasn't like, because during pregnancy, but like
after I had him, when the shed.
But even it was minimal.
Yeah,
from my remembrance, he did you so right.
He did.
London came in and punched you in the throat.
My God, I was like, let's just cut it. Let's just cut it. We're just going to a bob. Let's just cut it all off. It's fine. It'll be all right.
And you prayed for that girl.
I did. And I'm grateful.
She's a beautiful, fiery spirit. But she was like, oh, you want me?
Oh, you
about to work for me.
And I also feel like, too, like, you have to, like, you're initiated into motherhood. Like, it's a blessing, but that's literally the word that has come to mind. Either you're going to go through it while you're pregnant, during your, like, labor and delivery period, or postpartum. Like, if you listen to people's stories, like...
Or all.
Well, dang, I haven't met anybody who's
at least two of the three.
One pregnancy.
At least 2 of the 3.
Yeah.
Because I was sick as a dog with Navi. My labor was beautiful. Postpartum took me out. Mm-hmm. I was sick with Nori. The whole delivery process.
Girl.
But the postpartum was
good. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's just my journey. But, okay, so I know that we've talked about kind of the capacity that you have, and then just the differences in regards to like emotions. Mm-hmm. You didn't talk about with London. Did you have any like depression, anxiety, any like rage? Because some moms do have postpartum rage. So did you have any of that with London at all? Because it kind of sounds like you didn't really have much of like the emotional postpartum. It was more of like the balancing, sleep deprived, if I'm reading that right.
Yeah, no, it's more of like the capacity stuff. I will say I was a little bit more anxious with London because I had been working in labor and delivery at that point for like 4 or 5 years. So like I was like watching her more. I was just like more keen, and even like I felt like I was more anxious during the labor and delivery part
because you knew,
right? Like, and so I was like I had to really release that part. Did. But yeah. Mm-hmm. But no,
that's a blessing.
Do you feel like you had like a lot of emotional stuff with Nori? I feel like most of your stuff was just with
It was with Navi. But I was just thinking about like all your pregnancies, right? Like you didn't really have like anything.
You, Jesus.
You really didn't have.
I feel like because God was like, girl, because the other stuff.
You couldn't.
I could not even imagine being like super emotional with a newborn, newly married, in nursing school with
Oh,
one
yeah.
car, like I would have probably just been like, forget, I'm done.
You know,
Take me now.
Listen. And it's so
Struggle
funny because
bus.
you know how, this is a judgment-free zone, but you know how people, like moms will leave? Mm-hmm. Or
Girl.
I don't want to go too morbid, but moms will leave,
Yeah.
right? And people are like, how could you, until you have had a child.
Because they didn't know how to, communicate their needs.
Or if they were being communicated, they were not
weren't
being
met.
listened to.
Yeah.
Because I've read some stories where I'm like, why didn't y'all listen to her? Why didn't y'all listen? Yeah. She was literally screaming
yeah.
for help. And so I think that one thing that I did learn with Navia, and then also like I feel like you were very adamant about even with Nori, like when I was pregnant with Nori, and I've seen it in your seasons, to communicate what you need. And sometimes it might not make sense. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you might need to like just talk it out and they'll put words to it.
Yeah.
But to communicate what you need.
Whatever you are feeling.
Because no one knows.
Yeah.
Even if you might be like, well, you see I'm crying. All right.
Okay,
well,
but you
could have saw a commercial about some bunnies.
Like, I don't know.
Like, I don't know what, I don't.
Yeah.
So I do think that like one thing that I would say for any person, whether you're still pregnant, you have just given birth, or even if you're trying to communicate what you're feeling, even if it's a foreign feeling to you, the best of your abilities.
Agreed. I like that, a foreign feeling.
Because you don't know.
You don't know until you know. Okay, so we kind of talked a little bit about like, the spouse, and it's kind of like the silent spouse. We don't think about them. It's about the mom and the baby. Really, the baby, then the mom, then the spouse, and just kind of like the challenges. What do you feel like were the biggest challenges you faced as it relates to like being supportive and to Marcus, and like even like observing the things that he was experiencing or that he may have communicated?
I did not I think I was okay. So with Navia, I did not realize how distant he felt, and rightfully so, because I was single-handedly momming this little girl. And I think that it kind of clicked when there was a moment of, I was so tired. And I think Navi might have been like 4 weeks. And I was so physically tired that I was like shaking. And I'm like, I can't rock her. I'm gonna drop her. So I like went to Marcus and I was like, I need you to take her. I just need at least like an hour to 2 hours.
I remember that.
And he took her. And it was cute because he did amazing with her. And he felt, from the conversation we had, he felt good. Like, she wasn't crying, because every time she would cry, I'd be like, okay, give her to me.
Yeah.
And I was able to rest. And so we kind of went through the thing where, because he was the person who would stay up late, where he was like, he told me that, he was like, I'm literally here just to financially. Like, you don't need me emotionally. You don't, Navi doesn't need me here. Like, there's nothing I can do.
Wow.
And that's all I'm good for. And that's how he felt. And I was like,
wow.
what?
Yeah.
Like, we're sleeping in the bed together every night. We're talking every day. Like,
it's even like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's true.
Like the connection.
Yeah. And yeah, so like there was no like connection.
Yeah.
I was like solely encompassed with Navia. And so when he told me that, I was like, well, babe, no, you're definitely like needed more than that. And like, I had Navi like a couple of weeks before Marcus's birthday. And so that kind of like the 4-week mark is like where everything kind of like blew up, because we went out to eat for his birthday. And afterwards, he was just like, we came home and there wasn't really anything else. I'm like, we just had a new baby. And he was like, I felt like you didn't want to spend time with me. And I was like, how? I took you to eat. Like, I hung out with you. And like, I think that like there's a lot of distance that they feel, because your immediate attention goes to the baby and not to them. And so they kind of get like the leftovers, if you even have any leftover to give.
Right.
And so I think that it is important, like you said earlier, allow them to figure out like what it looks like to help. And that doesn't have to be your way, because there is a lot of times where like, I think that I felt like, okay, well, I'm just gonna feed her because she's crying. And sometimes that was the issue, but sometimes that wasn't the issue. And so to him it was like, every time she's crying, well, I can't get her to calm down. Here, you just feed her. And it was like, that didn't solve anything.
Yeah.
And it didn't allow him to figure out what worked for him. And I think that kind of shot down his confidence, which is why he felt like, I'm only here to help you financially.
Right. So do you feel like he got better with Nori?
Yes, because I was very intentional. I was very intentional with, like, we did fill in the bottle thing again, but I was very intentional with, like, making sure that he figured out, like, what it would be like to have Nori. And he was a lot more hands-on, because I told him, I was like, I need you to be more hands-on. I was like, I cannot do the whole Navia thing again, which might have contributed to, like, my anxiety, because I was so, like, it was me. And so I was very intentional with, like, during the night, like, when with Navi, Marcus slept like a baby every night with her. He had no idea that we were waking up. There was a moment where she was, like, 1.5. We had just moved. I had got COVID. Navi was still waking up at night, and Marcus had no idea. No idea that she was still waking up.
Yeah.
And so he got, like, he was getting frustrated because she had woke up twice. And he was like, you don't hear her? And I'm like, well, I'm asleep. I'm sick. Yeah, no, I don't. And the door is closed. There's sound machines going on. And he was like, so the next morning he was like, she's still waking up? I said, yeah, babe. He was like, I had no idea. And I was like, yeah. So with Nori, like, I was very intentional with, like, I'm going to wake up. I will feed him. You will change him. Like, and it was like that for a good little minute, also because I couldn't sit up without him.
Yeah.
So he had, like,
I physically need.
He had to. Yeah. Like, you had to wake up. So I was very intentional with making sure that he was more a part of the process. And even now, like, Nori's about to be a year, but there are still, like, I do try to take on, because I feel like I'm a little more graced with, like, the lack of sleep. But there are still nights where I'm like, you have to wake up at least once with him and help. And so.
Okay. Yeah. And so, like, even we'll hit on this, but just staying, like, connected, what do you feel like, what did you have to do to stay connected to him as far as, like, him being your husband during all of this?
Okay, so Marcus was not my husband when I had Navi. I feel like it was very hard to reconnect after having Navia. And in hindsight, I'm like, I don't know if that was, like, a God thing. It might have been, but it was like I was like,
and by reconnect I don't mean physically.
No, and I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, there was just, like, a distant, and I think because of, for me, I think that maybe, like, the order of, like, the way things were done, to where, like, I didn't, like, hold him at the esteem that I do, that, like, with him being my husband, because very much so I felt like I was a baby mama. Yeah. And so it was very hard to reconnect, like, for us to, like, spend time together, or even to want to. And I know that, it took some time. Like, it took us, like, being intentional with, like, once Navi was down, we're not going to talk about Navia. We're going to talk about each other or our day or whatever. When we would have the time to, like, go, be together, like, do dates, we would not talk, like, we would, like, but it took effort, because there would be times where we would start and I'm like, he or we would be like, hey, we're not talking about this. Yeah. With Nori, I think it's been a little bit different, because I feel like, because I needed him so much, and he was so involved, I think it was easy for us to keep that closeness and that connection, because he was intertwined with everything that was going on just as much as I was. And so, and because of me needing him and him needing me, I think that we were able to kind of not have that wall that was built. Yeah. To have to break down. Like, it was down. I do think that now that Nori's older, it has been a little bit of a struggle, because he wakes up and he's, like, a lot more clingy than Navi. And so I think, like, now we're starting to see, like, the effects of the roles and what he needs. But we have been very intentional with trying to spend time, because Marcus's thing right now is quality time. It's been that way for a really long time. At one point it was acts of service, but quality time is his thing. And there was a moment where we would be distant, because he would want to have his break. So he would be downstairs, and he's a night owl. And I'm like, I'm in the bed because I'm going to be waking up in 2 to 3 hours every X amount of time. And so that did cause a gap. And I remember having a conversation with Marcus, essentially saying, like, this is not going to work, and we're not going to be able to sustain a healthy relationship or marriage if we allow like this to, and it wasn't like it was like months of it, it was only a little while of us like having that distance, but you could feel the shift, and I was like, we can't do that. And so now I'm more intentional where like if I have the capacity, I'll go downstairs with him for a little bit, but like now it's like I'm not going to sleep before he comes in the bed, he's coming in the bed. And it's something so simple, but it is allowing us to have that closeness and connection.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Okay, so let's
little tips. So, okay,
for you
to kind of, I think really pretty much what you said. Just being intentional with including them, being intentional with communicating with them, and like having separate time, like time away. And I know that can be challenging when your kids are younger and who you feel comfortable with allowing to watch them, but like it's imperative to have those moments because there is like a restoration that comes from that. There's a reconnection. And so even if it's like, okay, we're going to go stay. I'm here for the date nights, but even if you could just go stay in a hotel room for like one night, you would be surprised because it's literally like a disconnect that happens. Like the kids are like literally, because just like how you have to be like, oh no, we're not talking about them. It's like really like, oh, I don't have to see them for 1 or 2 days. It's like you and me. And it also allows your spouse to like lower that guard, and like they end up communicating the things that they may not typically communicate on a day-to-day basis.
I like that.
So
whose idea was that? Because I know that's one thing that you and Dre do is you guys do take time away together, like to reconnect. Was that your idea or was that his idea?
Girl, I don't even know. Like we've been together so long. I'm just like, I know that like he started like taking us away for our anniversaries. And so we were doing that. And then like, I think it kind of started with that. We would try to at least every year or at least every other year go somewhere for 3 or 4 days. And we would come back feeling so like rejuvenated, reconnected. You're like, I do love you. Like, okay, we can like this will work. We're gonna make it another year. Yeah. And so like as the kids got older though, it was like we can't always do that. And then once we had 3 kids, we're like, okay, we can't. So it would become like little staycations where it's just like 1 or 2 nights.
Local.
Yeah, local. And even in those moments, it's like cool because you get to do whatever it is you want to do. You can lay around, watch TV uninterrupted. Like so.
Yeah. I do have one question. Did you guys ever have a conversation about how he felt? Because I know it was a struggle to where he, where he felt like AJ just didn't like him. So did you guys ever have conversations about like what it looked like for each child? Because you have had 3, so
yes.
Because he did really well with London, and I don't know if it's like because it was his 3rd child, so he wasn't new to this.
Yeah. So AJ, I feel like it was really hard for him because AJ was so attached to me, and I was with him a lot, and so like I remember one time I went to go work out at the gym, and I came back. And like AJ was like crying, like I could hear him as I was coming up the steps. He was crying the whole time. The neighbor came over and was like, "Is everything okay?" And he was like, he's like, "I just like don't know what to do." And I'm like, "I don't know like how to like help this situation. Like I don't know." And so I'm quite certain at the time I talked to Mom about it and just kind of like how to navigate. She was just like, "You just gotta like as much as he can." Let him spend time with Dre, with you outside, like out of his presence. So even if you're leaving the room, like to where he thinks that you're gone, but like he's just with Dre. So that was definitely a thing. And then with Aiden, I worked nights. So when I went back to work, Dre had Aiden at night. So I felt like that was really like good for him because it was like, well, I don't have a choice. I have to figure it out. And like that's probably why he does have like a really close, and I say he doesn't have a close bond with all his kids, but like there is a connection that him and Aiden have because he had him when he was 3 months.
He was like the mom.
At night, 3 days, 3 times a week, right? And so like I think that it like made him like, oh, I can do this.
Gave him confidence.
Yeah. And so I feel like we stayed like, and I think because we were newlyweds, like we stayed pretty connected, like emotionally, even though we were kind of going through with AJ and that's even good. Like with Aiden, with London, it was definitely challenging because I was so sick with London not so sick, but I was definitely uncomfortable to where I was sleeping in another room for like the last 4 months of my pregnancy.
Girl.
And so Dre like tried to sleep in there one night on a blow up mattress. That lasted one night. He was complaining. I was like, babe, you're too big. Like you can't sleep on a blow. Yeah, like we're older. You can't do that. And so he was like, are we even married? Like, I don't even feel married. I don't even sleep with you. And so I was like, I know, babe.
Tender.
We'll be together. We'll be together again soon. And so, you know, that was something. But once like I had her and we kind of navigated through that. I feel like we navigated even that season pretty well. But I knew too, like, this is the last child we can have. Like, my husband's not gonna.
He's not gonna make it. He's not gonna make it out.
No. Yeah.
Okay. That's good. I think that it's very interesting to see like the different parts of like how bringing a child into this world, it's not just like, oh, you have a baby and everything. Like to see that the different parts, and to also know that just as much as a mom is going through her things, the dad is also going through his things.
Yeah.
And to have those conversations and to allow him to figure it out. Because I think that sometimes we don't realize that as the mom, we've carried this baby. So we've had the time to like, you know, wrap our mind around the fact that like a baby is coming. We can feel the movements and we're going to all the doctor's appointments and all that stuff. And we're the one who physically like has a baby on top of like the things that do actually change in our brain. But dads are kind of like thrusted into it. Like, okay, baby's here.
Yeah. Okay, time to go. Yeah. And they're like, what?
What?
Like, I'm just now bonding with this baby for the first time. Like, first time holding it, feeling it, like physically connecting. So, yeah. I think it's just important to like understand all the aspects, all the like parts in the different seasons, you know? Like, because I feel like things... And I don't know if that's just like a by nature as humans, like we just like focus in and hone in on like one thing to where like it's very like tunnel vision, and there's no awareness. So again, like you're not aware of even as we talk about like, I mean, you know, this is a whole nother podcast, but how does this affect your other kids that you have and that dynamic and making sure that so like there's an awareness that, you know, I think we have to walk in better. To where we can better understand ourselves, others, and like serve everybody appropriately.
And no, it's just not so simple. Like it's not just having a kid. Like there's so much to it where people are like, yeah, I want to have a baby. And I remember when I was so young, I wanted to have kids. I'm like 21. I'm like, I can't wait. Yeah. It would have took me out.
Yeah.
Because there's so many layers to it. And I think that it's nice to be able to have this conversation because it's not had often. And people want something for so long, so bad. And they don't realize, like, because I feel like either people talk about, like, how hard it is having a child, or they make it, and they make it seem like you don't ever want to have these little gremlins. Yeah. Or they make it to where, like, it's unrealistic. Like, oh, I just love it. It's so beautiful. And it's like, there's a happy medium because it is beautiful to be able to get pregnant and to have babies and to have a partner with you who's invested in the health and the development of your child. But there's also going to be struggles. Like, it's not easy. There is and this might be jumping ahead, but there is I was watching something. I can't remember what I was watching, but essentially it was like, children are a blessing. And it's a blessing, not just because you've created this life, but because it pulls you closer to God. Because you cannot do it on your own strength. And I think that's it, right? Like, it's not just this easy thing just because, oh, it's just so beautiful and easy. And it's not this, like, super hard thing. Like, but God, allowing him to, like, give you the energy, like, every morning, literally, I'm like, God, please give me the strength. Yeah. Please give me the energy because I'm tired. Like, my physical body is tired. Yeah. But with you, I know that I'm able to sustain and support into this child and to do whatever they might need. And so I think that it's important to have that conversation. Like, there's so many different pieces to it, but the common piece is that God will give you the strength and he'll give you the ability to parent whatever child you have, because no one child is the same. No.
That was good.
Yeah. Sorry.
I feel good.
I do too.
I think we hit like some good things, and we can literally talk about mothering all the time.
We could talk about it all the time.
Have multiple. All right. Well, if you don't have anything else, do you want to pray us out?
One question. I'm sorry. I just want I know. This is me. I have all the questions. If from this topic, postpartum, the silent partner, if there was one piece of advice that you can give to like the mom and or the dad, that could have shifted things when you had AJ? Because this is the first child. I feel like you just kind of like going blindly. What would you give?
Like for like first time parents?
For first time parents.
I would say to communicate. Whatever that is, like open up your mouth. You're going to have to communicate what you're feeling, communicate your needs, both parties. So that way, like, you guys can both be aware where you guys are at and then, like, try to navigate the season. But it's hard for you to navigate and steer and go somewhere when you don't know who's involved and where your destination is. Like, what is our goal?
Yeah.
And, like, it has to be God-centered. Like, you will need the guidance of God to steward a child. Ooh, child.
That's good.
That's what I got.
I don't even have to add anything to that. That was good. All right.
It's a lot, but we're all capable through Jesus.
Say that.
We can do it.
That was beautiful. Okay, I don't have anything to add.
Well, you want to end this?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for gracing Q and I with the beautiful children that you have given us, but also giving us the insight. God, I ask that whoever has stumbled across this episode, whether they have children, are in the process of trying to have children, pregnant, or just have family members or friends who have children, God, I ask that this will speak to them. I ask that it will shift the way that they go about their day-to-day, that they will begin to incorporate you more.
Yes, God.
God, that you will just begin to give them grace. God, show them how to navigate this season. God, I want to say thank you that we are able to have this platform. God, continue to just use us.
Yes, God.
God, I ask that any spouse, whether it is the woman or the man, God, that you will just let them know that they are needed. Let them know that they are loved. Let them know that you created them and that they are breathing because you have given them that blessing.
Yes.
So God, I ask that any parent, that you will just guide them, give them strength, give them the ability, Father God, to raise children who fear you, Father God, who love you, who know you, who see you. God, I just want to say thank you for the parents. Thank you for your blessings. God, just be with us. In your precious Son's name, amen.
Amen.
Episode out.
That was good.
That was good.
Bye, guys.